Jake Morrison sat in his chair and watched the alien beings argue around him. The big crystal creature from Zephyr waved all four of its arms while it spoke in angry tones. Its voice came through the translation machines as harsh words about humans and their colonies. The humans have built 14 new colonies without asking us first, the crystal being said. They do not follow our rules about where they can go and what they can do. Amy Rodriguez sat next to Jake and wrote notes on her small computer. She had worked on 3 different planets before coming to help with the talks between species. She knew these meetings always went the same way. The council did not like what humans were doing. The tiger-like creature with 6 legs and shiny fur stood up next. This was the leader from Altaria. Human ships carry too many weapons, it said. They say they want peace, but they bring guns everywhere they go. Jake had been doing this job for 10 years. He was 63 years old and tired of these same arguments every time. He stood up and the room got quiet for a moment. We follow every rule you have given us, Jake said in a calm voice. Our colonies are built on empty planets where no one lives. Our ships only have normal weapons to protect themselves. Our scientists share everything they learn with all of you. The slug-like creature from the hegemony changed colors to show it was angry. You make too many babies, it said. Your people spread across the galaxy like a sickness. Amy broke her writing stick but kept her face calm. She had grown up on New Eden, one of the first human colonies. The idea that her home was some kind of disease made her mad. Having children is normal, Jake said. We cannot stop being human just because you do not like how many of us there are. The meeting went on for hours. Each alien species had something bad to say about humans. The robot beings said humans learn new things too fast. The hive mind creature said humans were too different from each other and problems. The space nomads said humans were using their old travel routes. Jake noticed something that scared him more than the complaints. The aliens were not talking to humans anymore. They were talking about humans like Jake and Amy were not even there. They spoke like judges deciding what to do with criminals. When the meeting finally ended, Jake and Amy walked through the halls of the space station. The station was built by many different species working together. It had strange shapes to fit all the different kinds of beings that lived there. But today it felt cold and unfriendly. Are you going to send the normal report to Earth? Amy asked quietly when they reached their rooms. Jake stopped at his door and put his hand on the lock. Yes, but this time I will add something special. That night Jake wrote a report that would later be called the Morrison Memorandum. He used careful words to explain that the Galactic Council was not just suspicious of humans anymore. They were planning something bad, and whatever it was would hurt humanity. At the end of his report, Jake wrote, I think we should start Protocol 7 right away. The Council has shown us what they really want to do, even if they have not said it out loud yet. Protocol 7 was a secret plan that very few people in the human government knew about. It was made by a small group of military leaders and diplomats who worried from the beginning that humanity might grow too fast and make the other species angry. As Jake sent his report through the special communication system, he felt like he was watching the end of something important. Humans had tried to find their place among the stars by being nice and working together with others. But the stars had different ideas. The next morning, Jake went to another council meeting. This time, the aliens were even more hostile. They talked about Resolution 847, which would force humans to let aliens watch everything they did. Human ships would need permission to go anywhere. Human colonies would have alien guards living on them. Human scientists would not be allowed to learn new things without asking first. This is not negotiable, said the hegemony leader. Humans are too dangerous to be left alone. You call us dangerous, Jake said, but we have never started a war. We have never attacked anyone. We have shared our food, our knowledge, and our friendship. What have we done that is so wrong? The crystal being from Zephyr made a sound like breaking glass. You exist too much, it said. You take up too much space. You learn too much. You grow too fast. You are not like us. No, Jake said quietly. We are not like you. We do not sit in one place and complain about others. We do not try to stop people from living their lives. We do not judge others for being different. The room fell silent. Jake realized he had just said what everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to admit. The council was not afraid of what humans might do. They were afraid of what humans were. After the meeting, Jake sent another message to Earth. This one was shorter and more urgent. They will vote on Resolution 847 in 2 weeks. If it passes, they will use their military to make us obey. We need to be ready. Back on Earth, people in secret government offices opened Jake's messages and began to make calls. Ships that were supposed to be carrying normal cargo started loading different things. Transport vessels began following new routes that seemed to make no sense. Research stations started sending huge amounts of data to hidden receivers. Jake did not know it yet, but his warning had started the largest secret operation in human history. While he sat in council meetings and listened to aliens complain about humanity, his own species was quietly preparing to do something that would shock the galaxy. The next 2 weeks would test everything. Humans had learned about keeping secrets, working together, and making hard choices. Jake would keep the aliens busy with talks and delays. Meanwhile, 200 million humans, scattered across 47 star systems, would get ready to disappear. The aliens thought they were judging humanity. They had no idea that humanity was already preparing to leave them behind forever. Lisa Hayes stood in the command center above the moon and watched workers put the final pieces on a ship that was not supposed to exist. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison sent his warning from the council station. Now Lisa had orders. That would change everything for humanity. The invisible systems are working, said Rick Barnes, her chief engineer. Rick had spent his whole career working on secret projects, but even he looked amazed at what they had built. No one can see US with any kind of sensor. Lisa nodded and kept looking at the sleek ship outside the window. It had no name, no numbers, no marks of any kind. It was one of 50 ships exactly like it, being built in hidden places all around the solar system. What about the evacuation plans? Lisa asked. All the colony leaders have their sealed orders, said Dan Cooper, her intelligence officer. They can only open them when they get the special code. Most of them think it is just another emergency drill. The plan was simple but brilliant. For 18 months, while keeping normal relations with the Council, humanity had been quietly getting ready for the possibility that they might have to leave the galaxy quickly. Every human colony, every research station, every deep space base had been given the tools they would need to evacuate fast. Dr. Helen Ross walked over with her computer tablet. She was the civilian coordinator who had figured out how to move nearly 200 million humans scattered across 47 star systems. It was the biggest moving job in history. Medical supplies are our biggest problem, she said. We cannot store everything we need without making people suspicious, but we cannot leave people behind either. What about the factories? Lisa asked. The Council will expect to find our manufacturing equipment. That is where it gets interesting, Don said with a dark smile. Every piece of human technology, every factory, every research lab has been fitted with quantum destroyers. When we leave, we will leave nothing behind but empty buildings and erased computers. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent sound from the communication system. Lisa accepted the incoming message, and Admiral Paul Norton appeared on the main screen. He looked very serious. Captain Hayes, we have received intelligence from our remaining diplomatic sources. The Council is planning to vote on Resolution 847 next week. Lisa felt her stomach drop. Resolution 847 was the formal name for what diplomats privately called the Containment Protocol. It would require all human ships to submit to Council oversight, all human colonies to accept permanent alien monitors, and all human technology development to be subject to Council approval. Are they serious about making us obey? She asked. Our sources suggest they are. The hegemony has been moving their fleet closer to human space. The synthetic collective has been studying our defense networks. They are not just planning to pass a law, they are planning to enforce it with military force. Dr. Ross looked up from her tablet. Admiral, if we are going to use Protocol 7, we need at least 72 hours to coordinate the evacuations. Can our diplomatic team buy us that time? Ambassador Morrison thinks he can delay the vote for a week, maybe 2 at most. But after that, Norton's voice trailed off. Lisa understood. After that, humanity would face a choice between giving up their freedom and going to war. War against a group of established galactic powers was not a war that humanity could win. Admiral, requesting permission to start Phase 1 of Protocol 7. Permission granted, Captain. God help us all. When the transmission ended, Lisa turned to her staff. You know what needs to be done? We have 14 days to evacuate all of human civilization from the galaxy without anyone noticing until it is too late. The next 2 weeks would test every aspect of human cleverness, determination, and ability to keep secrets. Across the galaxy, human administrators opened their sealed orders and began the most ambitious evacuation in recorded history. Supply ships that had been making normal runs suddenly started carrying unusual cargo. Transport vessels began following routes that seemed to have no logical purpose. Research stations started sending massive data transmissions to hidden relay stations on the colony world of New Horizon. Administrator Carol White read her orders 3 times before she believed them. Then she called her security chief, Lieutenant Ben Clark. Ben, we need to evacuate 12,000 colonists in 10 days without anyone outside this system knowing about it. Ma'am, that is impossible. We do not have enough ships. Check the outer system. There should be unmarked transports waiting there. Ben ran his sensors and found 5 large ships sitting in the asteroid belt. Ships that had not been there yesterday and were not showing up on any official registry. How long have those been there? He asked. According to these orders, they have been positioned at strategic points throughout human space for the past 6 months. We just never knew to look for them. Similar conversations happened on every human world. Colony administrators discovered that supply ships had been secretly stockpiling evacuation equipment. Research station directors found that their data had been automatically backing up to hidden servers. Mining operations supervisors learned that their heavy equipment could be quickly abandoned using pre-installed quantum destroyers. On the industrial world of Titan 7, manager Steve Adams faced a difficult choice. His world produced the advanced computer systems that ran most of human civilization. The quantum destroyers would eliminate the factories, but they would also eliminate irreplaceable knowledge. Sir, we can save the factory designs, his chief engineer said, but we would have to leave the destroyers offline. No, Steve said firmly, the orders are clear. We leave nothing behind that they can use to hurt other humans in the future. It was a choice that happened on every world. Humans chose to protect their future over preserving their past. They chose to keep their secrets rather than leave them for enemies. The most difficult evacuation was the research station at Kepler 442. Dr. Sarah Kim had spent 8 years studying unique crystal formations that could revolutionize human understanding of quantum mechanics. Her research was nearly complete. We can save the data, but not the samples, her assistant told her. The crystals are too unstable to transport. Sarah looked at her life's work. Then she looked at the evacuation orders. Pack the data, destroy the samples. Some things are more important than science. As the evacuation continued, hidden ships moved through space like ghosts. The stealth technology that had taken decades to develop worked perfectly. Council sensors detected normal human shipping traffic, but they missed the massive movement of people and equipment happening right under their noses. On distant worlds, human families packed their most precious belongings and prepared to leave everything else behind. Children asked where they were going. Parents gave answers they hoped were true. Somewhere safe, they said. Somewhere we can be free. The evacuation began on a Tuesday morning when Dr. Sarah Kim stood in her empty office watching the last transport shuttle disappear into space. Around her, the research station hummed with the quiet sounds of computers still running their programs, but the hallways were empty of human voices. Quantum destroyers are ready, said Lieutenant Joe Miller over the communication system. He was safely aboard the command ship, far beyond the star system's gravity. All people are accounted for. Sarah took one last look around her office. She had spent 8 years here, studying the special crystals that grew in the planet's underground caves. Her research had been close to a breakthrough that could change how humans understood the universe. Now, that research only existed in the computer files of the evacuation fleet. "Start the destroyer sequence," she said. The effect was immediate and complete. Every piece of human technology, every computer, every scientific instrument simply stopped existing. The building stayed, the furniture was still there, but anything that could show human technology or knowledge was gone. The same thing happened across the galaxy. On New Horizon, the farming colony that fed 6 other human settlements, farmers, loaded the last of their special seeds onto cargo ships before watching their equipment turn into dust. On Minerva Station, the mining operation that had been digging rare elements for human industry, engineers triggered the destroyers that would erase any sign of their advanced techniques. Captain Hayes watched the evacuation from the bridge of her unnamed ship. The huge display showed where every human settlement was, every transport ship, every group of people being evacuated. Green lights showed successful evacuations, yellow lights showed work still in progress, and red lights would show problems. "We are getting a priority message from the diplomatic team," said Kate Thompson, her communications officer. "Put it through." Ambassador Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked very tired, and Lisa could see the stress of the past weeks in his eyes. Behind him, she could see the familiar walls of the council station. "Captain, I have managed to delay the vote for another 48 hours, but that is the best I can do. The hegemony is getting suspicious of our diplomatic delays. How much longer do you need, sir?" "Amy and I will be on the last transport out. We are scheduled to leave in 18 hours. After that, you will have maybe 6 hours before they realize something is wrong." Lisa checked her tactical display. "Sir, we have 12 colonial groups still moving. The mining operation at Centauri Prime is having problems with their heavy equipment evacuation." Morrison nodded grimly. "I understand, Captain. Do what you can. But I want to be clear, when that vote happens, whether we are ready or not, the Council will move to enforce it immediately. You cannot be caught in human space when that happens." The transmission ended, leaving Lisa alone with the weight of command. 12 colony groups. Nearly 8,000 people still trying to evacuate. And less than 24 hours before, the galaxy would know that humanity had vanished. She opened a channel to the Centauri Prime Evacuation Coordinator. "Commander Brown, what is your status?" "Captain, we have a problem. The quantum destroyers are designed for normal technology, but our mining equipment includes some exotic matter containers. If we trigger the destroyers while those systems are active, how big an explosion are we talking about?" "Potentially enough to kill everything in the entire system, ma'am." Lisa closed her eyes. The mining operation at Centauri Prime was important to the evacuation. The rare elements they had been extracting were essential for keeping the fleet's advanced systems working. But losing 8,000 people was unacceptable. "Commander, abandon the mining equipment. Get your people out of there." "Ma'am, without those resources, our fleet will not be able to keep its invisibility systems working for more than a few years. Then we will find another way. Get your people out of there, Commander." "That is an order." All across human space, people face the same kind of choices. Keep the technology that made them strong or save the people who made them human. Every time they chose their people, on the agricultural world of Green Valley, Administrator Tom Wilson watched his farmers destroy equipment that had taken generations to develop. The machines that could grow food in any climate on any world were reduced to basic parts. "Sir, we could save the seed banks," his assistant said. "Hide them somewhere the destroyers cannot reach." "No," Tom said firmly. "If we are caught, those seeds could be used to make other species dependent on us. We take what we can carry and destroy the rest." On the research station at Volf 359, Dr. Linda Martinez made the hardest choice of her career. Her team had been working on medical technology that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. The cure was in the final testing stages. "We can save the research data," her assistant said. "Transfer it to the evacuation ships." "And if those ships are captured? If that knowledge falls into the wrong hands?" Linda shook her head. "Some knowledge is too dangerous to risk." "Destroy it all?" As the hours passed, the evacuation became a race against time. Transport ships loaded with families moved through space toward rendezvous points. Hidden supply depots released their stored goods to feed and supply the refugees. Emergency medical stations treated the injured and sick who could not wait for. Proper facilities dot on the industrial world of New Detroit, the last humans prepared to leave behind the factories that had built their civilization. Manager Robert Hayes, no relation to the captain, stood in the main production facility and watched his workers activate the final destroyer sequences. 30 years of work, he said quietly, gone in 30 seconds. "Sir, we saved the people," his foreman replied. "That is what matters." But Robert knew they were leaving behind more than just buildings and machines. They were leaving behind the dream of finding a place among the stars through cooperation and friendship. That dream had died in the council chambers, killed by fear and prejudice. The last transport left human space at 2:32 in the afternoon, Galactic Standard Time on a Thursday. By 3 o'clock, the quantum destroyers had been activated across 47 star systems. By 4 o'clock, the unnamed fleet had turned on their stealth systems and disappeared into the empty space between galaxies. Behind them, they left empty buildings, erased, computers, and no trace of where they had gone. The evacuation was complete, but the cost had been enormous. Humanity had saved their people, but they had lost their home. In the command center of the lead ship, Captain Hayes looked at the final reports. 200 million humans evacuated successfully. 0 casualties, 0 prisoners. 0 traces left. "Behind. Set course for the Andromeda Galaxy," she ordered. "It is time to find a new home." Council Security Chief Vex 77 was the first to realize something was wrong. As a member of the synthetic collective, the artificial being processed information differently than living creatures, and patterns that might escape biological notice were immediately clear to his computer mind. "The human communication networks have gone silent," he reported to the council leadership. "All 47 human colonies have stopped transmitting at the same time." Chancellor Thexka of the Altarian Federation leaned forward in his seat, his shiny fur moving with confusion. "Equipment failure? Solar storm activity? Negative." The silence was instant across multiple star systems covering thousands of light years. This was planned. The news sent waves of worry through the council chamber. The vote on Resolution 847 had been scheduled for the next day, but the timing of humanity's silence seemed too convenient to be an accident. "Send inspection teams to the 3 closest human colonies," ordered Prime Coordinator Gis of the Hegemony. "I want to know what is happening." The first inspection team reached the agricultural colony of New Horizon within 6 hours. What they found made no sense. The colony's buildings were perfect. The life support systems were working. The food gardens were still growing. But there were no humans. More disturbing was what they did not find. Every computer was empty of information. Every piece of technology had been broken down to basic parts. The colonists had disappeared, but they had taken their secrets with them. "This is impossible," reported Commander Zelks Prime of the inspection team. "There are no signs of fighting, no evidence of quick evacuation. It is as if they simply dissolved into air." Similar reports came in from every human colony. Empty buildings, working infrastructure, but no humans and no technology. The inspection teams found clothes, furniture, personal items, but nothing that could show how humans had achieved their rapid expansion across the galaxy. Dr. Kethmore, the Council's chief scientist who studied alien species, read the reports with growing amazement. "They have been planning this for months, possibly years. The coordination required to evacuate 200 million individuals across 47 star systems at the same time is beyond anything we believed humans could do. But where did they go?" Demanded Chancellor Thexka. That question would haunt the Council for years to come. Every sensor array, every deep space monitoring station, every intelligence network was activated to search for traces of the missing humans. They found nothing. The hegemony's most advanced tracking systems detected no hyperspace signatures large enough to account for the evacuation. The synthetic collective's quantum sensors found no evidence of mass transportation technology. The hive mind Concordat's telepathic networks sensed no human thoughts anywhere in the galaxy. It is as if they never existed, reported Intelligence Coordinator Vashkol after a month of useless searching, but humans had existed, and their absence began to create problems that the Council had never expected. The food products from human colonies had fed dozens of other species. The rare elements dug up by human mining operations had been essential for keeping galactic infrastructure working. The scientific research done by human scientists had been advancing knowledge across multiple fields. Within 3 months, food shortages began appearing in areas that had depended on human agricultural output. Within 6 months, several key transportation routes had to be abandoned because the rare elements needed for their maintenance were no longer available. Within a year, the galactic economy was in recession. "We need to find them," declared Prime Coordinator Jis in an emergency session. "Our analysis shows that humanity was providing nearly 30% of the galaxy's essential resources. Without them, entire sectors of our civilization will collapse." The search expanded beyond the galaxy itself. Long-range probes were sent to nearby galactic clusters. Monitoring stations were built in the empty space between galaxies. The Council committed unprecedented resources to finding the missing humans, but the universe is vast, and humanity had planned well. The unnamed fleet remained hidden in the darkness between stars, their stealth systems making them invisible to any known detection method. As months passed, the true scope of humanity's contribution to galactic civilization became clear. The Zephyrian Collective discovered that their crystal cities had been maintained using human-developed techniques. The Altarian Federation realized that their fastest ships used engines based on human research. The Nomad fleets found that their navigation systems relied on star charts created by human explorers. "We did not just lose a species," Dr. Kethmore reported to the Council. "We lost our most productive members. While we were arguing about politics and territory, they were solving our problems." The economic collapse accelerated. Species that had been part of the Council for thousands of years began to withdraw, unable to maintain their previous level of civilization without human-provided resources. Trade routes that had existed for millennia shut down. Research projects that had been advancing for centuries ground to a halt. "The humans were not taking from us," Chancellor Thexka admitted in a moment of painful honesty. "They were giving to us. Every colony they built, every resource they extracted, every discovery they made benefited the entire galaxy." Representative Klexvoar of the Zephyrian Collective, who had been one of the most vocal critics of human expansion, sat in stunned silence. "We called them aggressive for building colonies on empty worlds. But those colonies were feeding our people? We called them dangerous for having armed ships. But those ships were protecting our trade routes? We called them greedy for mining resources. But those resources were building our infrastructure." The irony was devastating. Every human action that the Council had interpreted as threatening had actually been beneficial to galactic civilization. The rapid expansion that had seemed like conquest was actually an attempt to meet the galaxy's growing resource needs. The technological development that had seemed dangerous was actually advancing everyone's quality of life. Security Chief Vex 77 processed the data with cold logic. Analysis indicates that humanity's departure was not an act of aggression, but an act of mercy. They could have fought us. Their technological capabilities were clearly superior to our estimates. Instead, they chose to leave peacefully. "Superior how?" asked Prime Coordinator Jiz. "The complete evacuation of 200 million people across 47 star systems in less than 14 days, with no detection by our monitoring systems, suggests technological capabilities far beyond our current understanding." If they had chosen to fight instead of flee, the outcome might have been very different. The council chamber fell silent as the members contemplated this revelation. Humanity had not just been peaceful neighbors. They had been powerful neighbors who had chosen peace over domination. "There is something else," reported Intelligence Coordinator Vashkol. "Our analysis of the human colonies suggests they left behind just enough infrastructure to maintain basic life support. They could have destroyed everything, but they did not. They preserved the colonies as if they expected us to use them." "Eh?" "Gift," whispered Dr. Kethmore. "They left us a gift." The empty human colonies stood as monuments to what cooperation could accomplish, and as silent testimony to the Council's greatest mistake. 2 years after humanity's disappearance, the Galactic Council faced a crisis that threatened to tear their civilization apart. The economic recession had deepened into a full collapse. Several member species had withdrawn from the Council entirely. Unable to maintain their previous level of technological sophistication without human-provided resources, Prime Coordinator Jays stood before the assembled council members, his slug-like form pulsing with dark, frustrated colors. "The situation has become unbearable. 3 sectors have declared independence. The Outer Rim territories are experiencing famine. Our long-range exploration programs have been suspended indefinitely." Chancellor Thexka's fur had lost its bright shine, a sign of long stress among his people. "We have to face the truth. We drove away the one species that was holding our civilization together." The admission hung in the air like a poison cloud. For thousands of years, the Council had prided itself on maintaining order and stability throughout the galaxy. The idea that they had been dependent on a species they had considered primitive and dangerous was almost too painful to acknowledge. "They were supposed to be the problem," muttered Representative Klex Vaor of the Zephyrian Collective. "Their expansion, their technology, their independence, we saw them as a threat to galactic order." "But they were never the threat," replied Dr. Kethmore, his voice heavy with the weight of understanding. "They were the solution. While we were arguing about territorial boundaries and political protocols, they were feeding our people, mining our resources, and advancing our knowledge." Security Chief Vex 77 processed the irony with the cold logic of his artificial consciousness. Analysis indicates that humanity's rapid expansion was not aggressive conquest, but economic necessity. They were attempting to meet the galaxy's resource demands through increased production and exploration. The revelation was devastating. Every human colony had been established in uninhabited systems, but those systems had been chosen for their resource potential. Every human research station had been advancing scientific knowledge that benefited all species. Every human trade route had been efficiently connecting isolated populations with essential supplies. "We saw their success as a threat, Chancellor," Vexka continued. "We interpreted their rapid growth as aggression. We demanded they submit to limitations that would have made it impossible for them to continue supporting the galaxy's needs. And when they realized we were serious about enforcing those limitations," added Prime Coordinator Jess, "they chose to leave rather than fight us." The council chamber fell silent as the members contemplated the magnitude of their mistake. They had accused humanity of being dangerous, but humans had never started a war. They had accused humanity of being greedy, but humans had shared their resources freely. They had accused humanity of being chaotic, but humans had been the most organized and efficient species in the galaxy. "There is something else," reported Intelligence Coordinator Vashkol. "Our analysis of the human colonies suggests they left behind just enough infrastructure to maintain basic life support. They could have destroyed everything, but they did not. They preserved the colonies as if they expected us to use them." "A gift," whispered Dr. Kethmore. "They left us a gift." The realization sparked new discussions throughout the council. Had humanity known what their departure would do to galactic civilization? Had they planned for the council to eventually recognize their mistake? The empty human colonies, with their intact infrastructure and life support systems, seemed like an invitation, a chance for other species to learn from human methods and perhaps rebuild what had been lost. "We have tried to colonize some of their abandoned settlements," reported Colonial Administrator Jex-9, "but we cannot replicate their efficiency. Their agricultural systems produce 3 times more food per unit of space than our best methods. Their mining operations extracted resources we did not even know existed. Their research facilities use techniques we cannot understand." "Because we never tried to understand," said Dr. Kethmore bitterly. "We were too busy fearing them to learn from them." The economic data painted a grim picture. Galactic trade had decreased by 60%. Scientific advancement had slowed to a crawl. Population growth had stagnated as food shortages spread. The vibrant, expanding civilization that had existed before humanity's departure was dying. "We need to find them," declared Prime Coordinator Jess. "Not to force them back, but to apologize, to ask for their forgiveness, to beg them to give us another chance." The search efforts had expanded beyond anything in galactic history. Deep space monitoring stations had been built in the void between galaxies. Exploration fleets had been dispatched to nearby galactic clusters. The Council had committed resources that their failing economy could barely afford. But searches found nothing. Humanity had vanished as completely as if they had never existed. Some council members began to wonder if the humans had found a way to travel to other dimensions or parallel universes. Others theorized that they had developed technology so advanced that they could hide entire civilizations from detection. "Maybe they do not want to be found," suggested Representative Mythtal of the Aquatic Confederation. "Maybe they are waiting for us to prove we have changed." The thought terrified many council members. What if humanity was watching from the shadows, observing how the galaxy dealt with their absence? What if they were waiting to see if the council would learn from their mistakes? As the 3rd year of humanity's absence began, some species started to make changes. The Zephyrian Collective began establishing colonies in uninhabited systems, following the human model of expansion. The Altarian Federation started sharing their scientific discoveries freely instead of hoarding them. The nomad fleets began mapping new trade routes to connect isolated populations. "We are trying to become what they were," observed Dr. Kethmore during a private meeting with the council leadership. "But we are doing it badly, and we are doing it too late." In the depths of intergalactic space, far from any known galaxy, the unnamed fleet continued its silent journey toward distant stars. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of her vessel, watching the navigation display track their progress toward a galaxy where no one had ever heard of the Galactic Council. "Ma'am," reported her science officer, Lieutenant Commander Frank Martinez, "we are receiving long-range transmissions from our old galaxy. It appears the Council has been attempting to contact us." "Content of the transmissions?" "Requests for dialogue, offers of negotiation, and apologies." Hayes considered this information. The fleet had been monitoring Council communications since their departure, watching as the galactic civilization struggled with the consequences of their decision. There was no satisfaction in seeing their former neighbors suffer, but there was a lesson in it. "Continue monitoring, but maintain communication silence," she ordered. "Humanity tried to be a good neighbor once. Perhaps someday we will try again. But not with them and not in that galaxy." The fleet continued its journey into the unknown, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of a species that had learned the hard way that sometimes the greatest strength is the wisdom to walk away. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued to search the void, hoping for a second chance that might never come. The universe was vast, and humanity had learned that there was always another galaxy, another chance, another group of species who might understand that diversity was strength, not weakness. The question was whether the Council would learn the same lesson before it. It was too late for their civilization to survive. Years passed, and the galaxy slowly adapted to existence without humanity, but it was a diminished existence. The Council eventually colonized some of the abandoned human settlements, but they never achieved the same level of efficiency or innovation, and somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, humanity continued its journey toward new worlds and new possibilities, carrying with them the knowledge that sometimes the most powerful statement a civilization can make is to simply walk away without a sound.